Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of our 4th Age Total War Dunlanding campaign. And this is going to start off with a defensive battle for the settlement of Swanfleet. We have put it under siege. It is one of those rebel settlements just upriver and to the east of Tharbad, and this is essential to us really controlling our northern border. We already have Tharbad, we've got the Southguard Fort, we've got Greyholm, all of these settlements very nicely garrisoned as well, so I'm not too concerned about at least the forces that I'm seeing right to my immediate north. We have basically neutered Tharbad at this point, and it's just mopping up. But what we do want to do is secure these rebel settlements to make sure that factions like, well, Adunabar primarily, can't just come down by Rivendell and surprise us in the north. We need to start taking our fight to the north and east along the side of the Misty Mountains. And so this battle is going to help secure that, hopefully. We've got a pretty decent force here. We're being attacked by this very small army of just a single unit, it looks like. And in the settlement, they've got a bunch of probably not too intimidating looking stuff by the balance of power bar here. Well, let's see what this first army is. They're not going to wait for their massive reinforcements. They're just going to charge ahead. It's just a Riotor scouts, shieldless, basically unarmored skirmishers that can do damage, but we're going to be shooting them down with our archers, so they're probably going to rout very soon here. As for our units, in the last episode, I revealed that we had converted to the cult. We'd built up enough of our cultic temples to a high enough point so that we no longer can train some of our high-tier native units. Those are being replaced with cultic stuff once we feel like training them. But one unit we haven't seen on the battlefield yet, and this is a unit that we can train whether we're cultic or not. There goes the enemy captain there. Is these warhounds. Now, I tend to avoid them to some extent because they're a little weird how the engine handles them. This goes back to, Vanilla Rome Total War, because the handlers release the dogs. The dogs themselves cannot be targeted, but they can really tie up your units or enemy units. And so that makes them really disproportionately powerful in a way. They also are a fear-causing unit, so, we've got enough of those for the most part. But when we convert to the cult, actually, we sort of lose access to some of those scary units like the wolf hunters, and so it's kind of nice to have another fear unit in our arsenal. And it's okay to have one or maybe two in an army. If you go overboard, though, it's a little weird. We've also got some tribal pikes. We've got mostly Dunlandish axemen. We've got 4 units of wolf hunters over here. These are guys that I had trained before the switch, and we have 1 unit. I'm glad I got to train a single unit of these guys before we went cultic, because we lost these too. Axes of the Wolf are not a unit that we can train anymore until we switch back. Let's take a look at their stats. They're not frightening, but they are good against armor, good at hiding in woods, combat bonuses in the woods, and so on. So a nice unit to have. They've got a war cry, so that makes them very, very much a charge type unit. We've got 4 units of cav, or 3 actually. This is just our Dunlandish horsemen, and we will be waiting for them because we've actually got 2 crossings here. Occasionally you do get maps like this where there's 1 crossing and then another one upriver, so you always want to check. Typically the AI will only pay attention to 1 of these, so let's just speed up and see what they do. Oh yeah, they're cruising right for the main crossing, it seems like. So they're not going to dispute this second path if they even sort of know that it's there. So we'll wait for them to cross, then get our horses around the back and bring this to a swift conclusion, I think. As for the Swanfleet garrison, it's more the same. Riotor scouts. They've got these very low-tier Riotor spearmen. They do have a Riotor axeman, which is probably the most intimidating unit. Actually, no, I take that back. They've got some hillmen. Well, I didn't know they could do that. This must be a starting unit in the settlement there. That's very well, good for them. I'm glad someone is getting these guys. We are training up a specialization building so we can train our own Dunlanding hillmen relatively soon here. So we won't feel envy of their hillmen. But it looks like they're sending some archers to dispute our cav crossing in the rear. That's just fine. Let's go ahead and actually send the dogs at a unit that's not currently routing. There we go. These are Rider Axemen. They're wavering, but may as well time up with dogs. And we've got the archers routing in the back here. Took minimal losses with our cavalry, looks like. It was no doubt not a good charge, and the archers got a shot or 2 in as we approached. We've still got lots of javelins. We got pikes back here, but I'm keeping them right back here because I don't want to engage them if we don't have to. Those hillmen are going to get in because they've sort of hidden themselves among the mass of their army, but as you can see, it's not going to do any good there. The dogs, all the javelins coming in, the enemy in their rear, it's not a good day for the rebels of Swanfleet. Well, and to my surprise, I didn't actually take the settlement. I just ended the battle because I was under the impression that the AI, when it was retreating, when you get the option to just end the battle, when they are rebels, they're just going to melt away. But apparently that's not the case with a garrison, or maybe that was like a family member general or something. I don't know. But at any rate, we've got it under siege for 4 seasons. That's kind of okay because I'm not in a huge hurry to have a border with the Dunabar. We've got a few things we do need to resolve. Yeah, it looks like they are sending some men down towards our territory. And we can tell here that they still have Imladris. They've got all this territory in the north. They've just got a lot of stuff. They've destroyed the hobbits. I don't know how the elves are doing, but we should probably send our scout up there just to see, because I believe they're still at war with the Dunabar currently. So them, the dwarves, everyone's going to be on the chopping block, and then me. So if the Dunabar doesn't wipe out Tharbad here, they're going to be coming down and hitting us here. But hey, that's what we're building towards. We're going to be getting up in their face. It's only natural that they should seek to do the same. Now, we are under siege at Edoras by Rohan. I'm just going to wait here, and hopefully they will assault. It looks like they're planning to do that. As you can see, this is not too bad. It's their larger army outside of Aldburg, and it's mostly tier 1 and 2 stuff. Inside Edoras, we've got Sheld of Dunkreok, the king, with Harumar here converting the population for us. We've got another family member, and a lot of archers. We've got pikes for all that cav. I mean, maybe I shouldn't be so confident, right? But if they attack soon, our couple of family members, and I think all of these ranged units are going to do really well against them. So hopefully things go the way I expect. Don't want to have to rebuild Edoras a 3rd time. And at Dunland, we finished our specialization building. That is the Hillmen Fort, which we can see right down here. It's going to give us our Dunlanding Hillmen, so we can train them alongside our other cultic units, which is very nice. Sort of some native flavor alongside this more heavily armed, much more expensive stuff. I am training some Spears of the Shadow, just to compare the stats here. 20 attack for these Hillmen, 11 charge, 20 defense, which is, arguably not terrible. Recruitment cost 187, but the upkeep is the big thing. 50 Mirian for upkeep. Let's take a comparable-ish unit. What do we want to say? Swords of the Shadow, maybe? Sure. Sort of a melee grinder units, some weapon and board, right? 390 Mirian upkeep. Attack is a little bit lower than our Hillmen. Defense, though, is much higher. Just much, much higher defense. Morale, reasonable. These guys have, let's see, they don't have any morale mention here, so it's probably a bit lower than reasonable, which means that these guys are going to stay in the fight longer, not only on account of their armor, but on account of their training and discipline. You'll find that's the case with our other cultic units as well. So we're going to have a nice, solid core of cultic stuff. If we can get the balance right, that's the thing I'm curious to experiment with here, is because I don't think I want to go totally, cultic units. I don't want to just build my armies around these 3 units. 1, that's a little boring. But 2, I think if we have just a few units sprinkled in amongst our line of, tribal spearmen, Dunlandish axemen, we get some of these hillmen as well. We've got our own archers. We've got some cav. Get a mix of things going on here, and I think it'll be an interesting composition. The other thing we're doing is closing in on the last Tharbad settlement south of the Grey Flood. This is Lond Dare. This is under Biddy of Dunland, and we're just going to go ahead and put it under siege. Go ahead and get our typical 4 rams. And inside, it's not too much. They got some Mariner Bowmen. Now, there was a ship down here of Tharbad's, and they had some men inside of it. Yes, right here. They're probably still there. There we go. It's just some bits and tinder, I guess, left over from previous attempts. They've got 9 men, 24 here. So not too much. This is a noble. He's not the king or anything, so I don't have to worry too much about the faction dying out if that ship should sink. I'm more concerned about them landing it at an inopportune time, but maybe we'll have another defensive battle here for Lond Dare. Probably the thing I'm having buyer's remorse about the most with regards to our cultic conversion is in Dunfrecka, because we didn't get a chance to build up to the highest level here before we switched. And at the highest level, we get Riders of the Eisenmarch, which is a nice medium cav unit for Dunland. Our own cav is okay. It's very dangerous. They've got javelins and they've got spears for melee for that nice charge punch. But the Riders of the Eisenmarch just hang on a lot better. So these are just a nice unit to have, sort of a prestige unit. But we won't be seeing them unless we flip back to Ways of Darkness, which we may. And then what we want to do is try to build up so we can take advantage of them in the narrow window that we'll have before we go back to the cult again. In their place, we're going to get, their typical 3 cultic units, but we still get an interesting unit at the highest tier, even if we're cultic, and that is the Eisenmarch Guard. This is a bodyguard unit that you can train. So you will typically not see... I'm trying to remember how it works. I don't think the AI will train these units as family members, but I think we have it set up so that the AI will train a sort of a different version of this unit that's just not a family member. I think for some reason the Rome Total War AI doesn't like to train the trainable generals, but it will train units. So we made a sort of a copy of this unit so you can at least see it on the field sometimes. But for us, this is going to be a family member, which is nice. It's a neat unit. However, it is very different from the typical... where are they here? Where's the guard unit? Oh, well, because they take place of the Chieftain's Guard. So the Chieftain's Guard, of course, I guess I don't need to show it. You just remember. Chieftain's Guard is effective against armor, has a war cry capability. Neither of those things is true, unfortunately, for the Eisenmarch Guard, and they come in a much smaller unit size. However, of course, they are cavalry, so they have a bit of that mobility, which can be good. I would probably want to keep these guys with some solid cav. Now, in our case, that's not going to be Riders of the Eisenmarch, but it's going to be, Shadow Riders, maybe some of our other light cav, and keep them roving around in an army that has some actual substantial cav presence, so that you don't have just this guy as, like, the only horseman with, like, a couple of your low-tier Dunlanding horseman dudes. And then that's probably a way to get your general killed, because they're not the best cav generals. But if you want to keep them going with a mobile force of, more substantial cav, that might be a good idea. All right, so Tharbad is approaching us with a ceasefire offer, a demand, and a demand for, well, everything that we've taken from them. Now, this is sometimes a good sign in terms of how willing the AI may be to agree to a Protectorate status. So let's see if that works. Let's keep the money on the table. Let's get rid of this stuff, and instead we're going to demand that they accept overlordship. But we should actually change the cash amount. Let's see. I will give you everything in my treasury, which is, about twice what they are asking. They're probably not going to accept... Oh, they went for it. All right. Okay. Fantastic. So let's see if this holds now, because... let's see. Do they have any allies? Oh, shoot. They're allied with Rohan. Okay. That means I'm not at war with Rohan anymore, which is really nice, because that just saved Edoras. But the problem there is, okay, looking at the diplomacy again, this may have been a horrible mistake on my part, but so we're at peace with Rohan, but Rohan is still allied, of course, with the Reunited Kingdom, and we're at war with the Reunited Kingdom. Now, the way Rohan and the Reunited Kingdom are allied in the game, it's kind of like they're the Roman factions in the vanilla game, and that means if one of the families goes to war, the other ones go to war too. So basically next season, Rohan's going to declare war. They're going to join the Reunited Kingdom again. And that means, since they're declaring, our new Protectorate is almost certainly going to join them and drop their Protectorate status with us. I don't want that, because looking at our income, we haven't really made back all the money that we typically do with a Protectorate state. Oftentimes with a Protectorate, you get back at least what you put in, and then usually a hefty sum in addition to that. And then, of course, they keep paying you tribute the whole time. We gave them 53 grand. We get 10 grand back. That's a bad return on investment. So in order for us to make that back, we need to make sure that they stay and keep paying us tribute. So that means we need to attack Rohan. If we attack Rohan, there is at least a chance that Tharbad will stay on our side. If they don't stay on our side, well, we just gave them a ton of money for no real purpose. But it's good to find that out now rather than later. I guess what we could do Well, we could hit this army. I don't really want to fight this battle, so I guess we could withdraw immediately. But what do they have in here again? We could probably take him, honestly. And it might be good to take him down a notch. A nice field battle against Rohan might be just what the doctor ordered. All right, so we've set up on a nice little hill here. The AI, because we are the attacker, they're just going to kind of hang out and let us shoot them. They're going to run forward with their line of levies of Rohan and you know, probably turn around. Maybe they'll catch our archers, actually, but they're going to run into our pikes, it looks like. Probably rout fairly soon after that. Their army, though, is not looking too scary. The only reason that I'm feeling good about this is because we've got a bunch of archers, and so I think we can do a lot of damage both to their, you know, lower tier infantry, but especially to all of these unshielded cav. You know, a lot of cav looks intimidating, and it can be if they get off a nice charge, but if we can thin out the herd, then that's going to have a big impact. And if we can reserve our pikes for this unit here, the Riders of the King's House, then that'll, of course, be very nice. But this is a very unconventional army for us. We usually do not have this many... actually, what is that? Okay, the Dunland attack. You guys can stay there, I guess. Usually we do not have this many just strictly melee units of tribal pikes. We have 4 of them. We do have a couple of other melee-focused units. We've got a couple units of Chieftain's Guard. We've got a fragmented unit of Hillmen and a couple units of cav of our own. But I think this little knot is going to go away pretty soon. And then we'll see how this goes. Now, the real concern here is not so much the outcome of this battle. Of course, it would be nice to win. But the outcome of the diplomatic, the diplomatic outcome, right? Like, what are the effects of this new war with Rohan? Typically, the AI will side with the aggressor in such wars, but there are occasions where I've seen that they don't. And usually that is when you're dealing with, with a special kind of alliance. I think I've had it happen as Tharbad, actually. I've managed to get Dunland as a Protectorate, and then the next turn they break it even when I attack a Dunabar. So I guess we'll see. I don't know if this is gonna work out. If so, maybe we just spent 40 grand on nothing. Alright, finally got rid of them. Just pull back. We're not going to rush into the fight too soon. Still got a lot of our pikes left in this unit. Only 1 unit of levies left, and then the rest is cav. So let's, I guess, move forward. Alright, one little desultory charge on the part of their Rohan spears, which we saw off pretty quickly here. I couldn't even zoom in quickly enough before they decided to withdraw. And they've decided to head for the hills. That's just fine. You know, again, we want to keep Rohan alive. That means we don't really want to kill all of their family members. But we want to take them down a peg. Just make it so that they feel less confident about putting us under siege. So at least if this has done nothing else, this diplomatic maneuvering of getting Tharbad as a Protectorate, if they still decide to stick with Rohan, at least this has saved Edoras from a turn of siege, and we can continue building there. Alright, so Rohan withdraws back to Aldburg. That's just fine. What's the situation? What's the diplomacy now? Are we allied? We are still allied. Tharbad now has no other allies. They're not at war with anybody else. They're only allied with us, and so we've kept them as a Protectorate. That is fantastic news, and I was not expecting that. Really not expecting to ever get them as a Protectorate, just because... I don't know, we didn't have enough of their settlements. We didn't have all of their settlements under siege, actually. So if you're kind of following along and trying to figure out the Protectorate mechanics like I have been for the past decade plus, this is another sort of data point to keep under your hat. And that is, my assumption in the past has been, you need to really grind them down. You need to get rid of any stacks that are out in the field. You need to basically make sure they don't have garrisons much larger than this one here, and you need to have your armies on their territory putting them under siege. Now, I had placed Lond Dare under siege, but I hadn't done anything with this settlement over here. I didn't have Northgard Fort threatened at all, and they've still got a boat with about a quarter of a stack inside. So I was really thinking this was just going to be, no thanks, we're not going to go with it. So this does change things now. What this means is we can move some of our forces away. We can, in fact, turn our attention back down towards these rebels and pick up a couple settlements for ourselves that way. So let's move the emissary back down here, just to get an eye. Okay, so what we could do is hit this army, call out this one, and then get the settlement that way. We'll just roll up Lymphalis and Dunfata, possibly do this stuff off camera. It's not going to be terribly exciting battles, I don't think, but we'll get these, and then we'll have land stretching to the sea, from the mountains to the sea, essentially. And then this also means that we don't need quite such a garrison right next to Tharbad. As long as they don't attract the attention of Adunabar, which no guarantees, then we'll have a very, very nice buffer, even more secure than I had been expecting. So that's fantastic news. We are, however, getting some sabotage reports. We've got Homeland Dominion, which has been sabotaged in Dunland. Now, of course, this is one of several buildings in the mod that are not really intended to represent physical brick and mortar buildings. This is a building that represents, the control of a particular region. And so to what extent can an assassin or a rogue character demolish or partially destroy this building? Well, think of it like this. Not so much as he's literally lighting a fire outside of a shed, but he's sort of seeding discontent. He's getting some of my chieftains on his side and basically fouling up the works. So we no longer have a strong homeland dominion over Dunland, which is really a problem because that means we can't recruit much at all. We can still recruit, interestingly, Chieftain's Guardsmen, which I wasn't expecting. But all of our military stuff basically goes away because to recruit anything, you need to have this building. So we absolutely need to restore that. Not going to cost us very much, but just a little annoying to deal with. I think we need to get a spy down here because this is not the first sabotage we have experienced. We've been running into it in Greyholm. So I moved a spy down there. We'll just keep shuffling these spies around. So we'll move him over towards Dunland. He might be able to get there this turn. And who's that? An Aorling rogue. Very interesting. So a not very skilled, this is what the vanilla game would call an assassin. So he can destroy buildings. He can also attack characters. Okay, this is more like it. We are now at the season after we got the Protectorate from Tharbad. So they approached us on their turn. So that was on the AI's turn. And at the end of that, right, it was a little disappointing. The return was about a quarter or less of what we had put in. And now we've made up for that in spades. I think we put in, something like 50,000. I can't remember the exact number already, but about 50,000 for Protectorate is what we shelled out. We get about 10 back. Now, this last season, we get 66,850 in diplomacy/tributes. That is going to be all from our Protectorate. We didn't do any other diplomacy. So that is paying for itself well over. And that's a lot more like it. I was thinking at first that possibly the low return could have been a result of Tharbad's, just their very weak nature. They have not had the chance to build up economically at all. They have not really conquered even to the sea, apart from Lond Dare, which they had to start. And so that's what I was thinking. Now, we may not get a lot of money out of them in the long run in subsequent turns because they don't have a very strong economy, I'm imagining. But this by itself is worth it. We're up now to 84,643 total. We've been at, I think, 100,000 in this campaign. So, this is all... this is fine. We're going to go up, you're going to go down. So don't be afraid to shell out for a Protectorate if like this, you're pretty confident you're going to get the return back. But more importantly, for your borders, for the sake of those borders, because look in the distance here, we've got a couple of stacks of Adunabar, and we know what they want to do. There is no mystery here. They've cleaned out the Reunited Kingdom in the north. They want to come down south, but they're not going to do it. They're not going to attack Tharbad, I think, because Tharbad is under my protection, and the AI is very hesitant to attack factions that are Protectorates. Well, let's just get our spy up here to the north, just to verify that the Shire, just so we can update our mini-map, I guess, verify that the Shire has indeed fallen. And I'm curious to get eyes over here around Mythlond to see if Adunabar is going to bother taking those elven territories. But so not only in terms of our borders, but also financially is this Protectorate starting to pay off. But as for our income, although it's saying we're going to make this much money next turn, I don't believe it, but let's pretend it's true. Let's go ahead and spend money as though this is correct. So in Dunland, let's go off, because our general here is getting a little old, our Governor Kugga of Anghal, you can tell by the color in his beard. And so let's go ahead and get some advanced tanneries and wool makers. This is going to bring in a little bit of cash. It's going to have some upkeep associated with it, but most importantly, it's going to allow us to upgrade the armor of units that are trained here. And since we're doing a lot of training, it's nice to have that armor upgrade. Let's go ahead and queue up another unit of Spears of the Shadow. I think these spears are probably going to be the most important cultic unit for us. Possibly the Swords of the Shadow, they're sort of a good all-arounder, but spears just have that slight better defense. The upkeep is, well, actually, I'm not wondering if it's worth it. But these guys will be good against Cav, and I think that's really what I need to build for this time. In terms of, the other unit here, Axes of the Shadow, they're effective against armor, but I've got way cheaper anti-armor units, including my generals, so I'm not too concerned about that aspect. We're going to go for the tough guys who can hold the line. And everywhere else, I'm just building the major province upgrades, the urban province, basically anything that's huge and expensive, we'll go for it. Major province here. I know this is getting us way down in terms of our income, but we may as well queue all this stuff up at the moment. Who knows what our income is going to look like next season, and it's kind of nice to spend the money if you have it. Usually I'm such a stingy player, so this is kind of rare for me. Okay, so my clever plan to wall off the north has failed, interestingly. Let's see, we're of course betrayed by the Kingdom of Adunabar. They have besieged us here in Tharbad. Now, why is that? Very uncharacteristically, the AI has crossed over enemy or neutral territory. They are not at war with Tharbad, I don't believe. No, they are completely neutral to Tharbad at the moment. However, here's what I'm seeing and here's what I'm wondering. Does this count as a border? The fact, or did the AI see that they could just cross from northern Cardoland? Yeah, I think you can. Okay, good to know. So this is actually not effective in this particular province because northern Cardoland is just barely touching our province of eastern Cardoland. So damn it, that is, we were so close. I guess what I could have done is pushed, well, no, I would have had to go to war with the Adunabar. Maybe bought this off of them, gifted it to Tharbad, and maybe that would have bought me a few more turns. Regardless, war is here now, and let's take a look at what they have. We can't really tell. We've got a scout in here, but still he's not giving us the best information. Okay, this army we can see actually more clearly. It's a lot of kind of low-tier stuff. These are still formidable units, of course. Dark Swords, this is a tier 2. It's a pretty solid all-arounder. Their Grim Spears are nothing to write home about, but a 23 defense is really good, especially compared to a lot of our units. They get a few orcs here that are just going to make things a little more awkward for them, and they do have some archers. This is a very annoying unit to deal with. However, Adunabar is weak in cav and typically weak in light, fast units. So I think they're going to be not too tricky to deal with if we can maintain mobility. The problem here is, of course, they've got 2 full stacks. Now, we're in the city, and they're going to be really good in sieges. So, can we attack them with this army, use these guys as reinforcements, and hope for the best? This will be a 2-on-2. This army is not looking super strong. I was bringing these guys back to Dunland to get them met up with the stuff I'm training over here. But I'm wondering now if I can't really afford to wait. Let's take, we had a commander come of age here. He's all right. He's not great, but we'll take him. Misty Mountains Hold is still working on orcs. We can't really do anything with this province until next turn. We can then train our most basic tier of orcs, but we'll be able to upgrade this building further to get the good stuff. So let's just bring these guys up. Let's recruit everything we can in terms of mercs, and just keep training everywhere. And keep the push, I guess, headed north. Let's, yeah, let's take Swanfleet off, and let's try it. Oh, that's terrible. That's just terrible. We're not getting our reinforcements from the city because we're not attacking the besieging army, unfortunately. Okay. Okay, that's not good. What we can do, maybe I think if we sally and attack this army, we're not going to get our reinforcements either because they're not on the same tile. All right. Well, maybe next season we can maneuver them another. I don't know. This is going to be really tricky to figure out. If they assault, though, I think this army will show up as reinforcements. We've still got time. Oh, and we've been given a gift. So on their turn, they're not assaulting, but they are attacking my army. Bulka of Dunland. This is the general who was besieging Swanfleet just a moment ago. So the army, not the army that is besieging Tharbad, but the other one is attacking us, and we're going to get the bridge. So this is fantastic news. Again, this is that fairly lowish tier army, and I think we've got enough scary stuff that we're going to do okay in this. So here's the situation off in the distance there. You can see Tharbad, that is representing the settlement, which is currently under siege by another larger and more intimidating army, but we've got our forces set up here back from the bridge. We've got our axes out front, we've got pikes behind. Not quite sure if we're going to really use these guys in the battle except to plug holes. We've got our general further back, and we've got our 3-ish units of cav here. Archers near the front. What we want to do is try to get a few cheap shots as the enemy crosses the bridge, at least forms up to do so. If their archers present themselves, then I'm going to take those shots. It looks like they are moving their dark bows over to the right, and they've got another unit back there, so we will have to watch it. But they're going to probably form up in a column and then head straight across. Over on the right, though, we've been gifted with a couple of nice clumps of trees, and so I'm going to set these guys up here. We've got our 4 units of wolf hunters. They're on fire at will, and they're ready basically to just throw javelins and be scary when the enemy crosses. Just in front of them, in case anyone approaches the line, we've got some warhounds to sort of tie them up. And then in the back, we've got our Axes of the Wolf. These guys are war cry as well. They get a bonus when fighting in woods. So I'm hoping is that the enemy is going to move in this direction. Then they're going to get a nice counter charge, and we can move our axes forward. Our axes, I think, get a bonus in the woods as well. Yes, they do. So if we can sandwich some of the action over here, that would be fantastic. It's going to be a little tricky potentially, but that's the plan. All right, looks like they're on the move now. We've taken out one of those units of bows. This is going to be archer versus archer, and we're probably going to do fairly well, although we're going to have to back off here in a moment because these guys are possibly going to go after our bows. Now, one flaw with this, I suppose, could be if the AI decides to search over here instead of in this clump of trees. Usually the AI is very happy to search all over the place for your hidden units, and that could be a problem. Let's see, they're going to catch some of our bowmen. That's all right. We'll wear them down a little bit. We'll wait till they cross, or at least till most of them cross, and then launch our attack. Meanwhile, our axemen are starting to throw. We're just going to hold tight. We want to get the bulk over. We don't want to blow the surprise too soon. Dark Swords are charging. Now, these guys are going to win. At least initially. All right, they're holding back, which is really interesting. They're not quite sure where our men are. Now, you know what? Let's throw in with the general. This is very risky, but if we head in here to try to cut out the center, maybe that'll induce the rest of them to come and we can finally spring our trap. I'm surprised how well our men are holding up. We've got a little armor-piercing, heavily armored chieftains in here to hopefully turn the tide. Now, I think it will do. Let's bring our cavalry around. Ambush unit still completely hidden. Let's keep our pikes right here for the moment. Get a war cry going, and then send these guys into the middle here. It's not going to be an ideal charge, but it's better than nothing. Let's charge in against these orc raiders with our cav, try to get them going. Looks like they're moving now, so we may have... Okay, that's great. We've got them routed, but let's pull back. We don't want to get into a long fight. These units are shaken. Alright, I think it's time to let the dogs out here. Get some routing happening in the center. Alright, they're not coming anywhere near the woods, unfortunately, so we're going to have to bring our wolf hunters out to them. Let's just bring them out here. Axes the wolf out as well. They're not going to cause fear, but they'll be very welcome. And these cav are going to be useful just to draw the enemy back away from us. Okay, so we've got a lot of routing happening over here. The enemy commander is routing, or the whole center is routing. Let's just give these wolf hunters throw orders. War cry with the axes of the wolf. Oh, fantastic. And that's the end of it. It looks like they've got some dark bows who are, I don't know if they're trying to approach or trying to withdraw. Their cavalry over there. They can hopefully clean them up. And that's the end of this fight. They've got their captain withdrawing, but we've basically deleted that army, which is very, very nice. Now we can actually reinforce Tharbad. Well, one stack down, one to go. I'm wondering if they're going to want to stick around if we bring these reinforcements on. Let's go ahead and combine some of these units. We can get a couple of archers. And they want to fight. Okay. Well, very interesting. I imagine they're going to withdraw fairly soon. But looking at this army, it looks very similar to what we just fought, although they do have more archers. Looks like 4 units full. And, you know, some orc champions, a unit of orc hunters. So a lot more bows, meaning this is going to be kind of a weird attack. I'm glad I bought those extra merc bowmen. All right, we're actually getting reinforcements in this fight, which means we may get a little bit of a slideshow effect going on here, unfortunately. We're already getting shot at from shockingly far away by these dark bows, who are, of course, targeting the unit I don't want them to target, the axes of the wolf, but they only take a few shots and then withdraw. So what we're going to do is hope to hold out here until our AI reinforcements show up from Tharbad, and it looks like the AI is going to do its usual thing. They'll probably do this for a little bit and then pull away. We've got a front line of bows backed up by Dunlandish axemen who are already throwing javelins. On the wings, we've got 2 units of wolf hunters on each side. Warhounds behind them on the right, hunters or axes of the wolf behind them on the left. Pikes in the general in the center, and yeah, we're already seeing some routing. These are some low-tier units, as we said. But the AI and reinforcements are not holding back. They're charging ahead with their horsemen, so this is something we need to be aware of. We need to move up to support them, because they're going to do stupid stuff if we don't. And they probably will do stupid stuff anyway. But, you know, it's kind of fun every now and then to play with the AI reinforcements. I think this is the only way that I could have gotten them on the battlefield because, well, you can't control more than 20 units yourself. So it's kind of nice to see the AI, the enemy, have to take this other force into account. Let's see. If we move a much closer, though, they're going to take... we're going to take some severe damage due to their arrow fire. They're moving the orc hunters up. Let's target them. They're going to be a pretty easy target. Right, my allies are aggressively moving their horsemen on the flank of both flanks, and I'm not sure exactly what they're going to accomplish by that, but it is perhaps making the enemy here draw out into a single long line. Oh, we do have a general unit, and they're going to go after these Dunlandish axemen who have proffered themselves as bait, I'm going to say. This is all intentional. We'll go ahead and get our pikes into that. Hopefully this unit won't rout before we get there. The rest of their line seems to be hanging back, as the AI typically does. Alright, those axemen are doing a lot better than I expected. need to take these archers off the targeting. They're going right after the Orc Hunters. We're slowly doing some damage to those nobles. We'll just keep holding back for now. I want the enemy to get a little closer. We're going to get some javelin throws in on all of these units. Then we're going to war cry and charge in. But that's always the issue with these multiple ability units, which have the war cry ability as well as javelins. That makes it difficult to know exactly when to use which ability. Okay, Orc Champions losing against Pikes and Cav. Awesome. Axemen are charging into the Grim Spears. I think they're going to do very well there. I'm going to hold back, though. The AI is going to use these guys in, typically aggressive ways. And so I'm going to kind of let them for a little while, and then we're going to run in, or at least maybe march in. There goes the enemy general with these Dunlandish Axemen. We'll get up to their front line, bring our own men up to the side there, and slowly help out. I'm not going to rush in to assist, though. I want to preserve one of these armies. Okay, they're charging in with their dark bows. Actually, that would be a great target for my Cav. Yep, starting to rout the allied unit here. Right, we may need to think about helping this guy, though. The Chieftain's Guardsman is losing on this side. Let's get the Warhounds just to charge in at any of these units. And yeah, we'll take these two guys and run them up. Looks like the rest of the force is withdrawing. We beat their archers with our Cav, so we can get over here. Yeah, they're just pulling away. That's great. I'd love to keep my general. Did we lose him? Nope. 26 men, losing slightly. I mean, he was not the best. He's the governor of Tharbad, which he probably shouldn't be. So, you know, in some ways, we could view this as... okay, there they go. They're just routing. The presence of our wolf hunters and just the sheer numbers are going to do that. So, wonderful. Well, we'll take it. We've saved Tharbad, and then we'll have to reconfigure on the campaign map. All right, Tharbad saved. Well, I think this makes a pretty good point to call the episode here. We have defended our northern flank, but I was really picturing this turning out rather differently, I have to admit. I thought that by now we would have basically secured this side for ourselves, probably keeping Tharbad alive, but still at war with them, because I never thought that they would agree to be our protectorate. But so far, that's worked out a little less well than I would have thought. But in the meantime, thank you very much for watching. Next time, we're going to be pushing north, finally getting a war against Adunabar and seeing if we can preserve our protectorate status. Thank you very much for joining me. Until the next one, take care.